Hi guys. So I'm here as I'm waiting to go inside the store, and I'm thinking about Job 13 verse 15. It is very significant to me that Job, as he was going through his turmoil, as he was going through his chaotic season in his life, he didn't give the devil any type of acknowledgement. He didn't acknowledge him. He didn't mention him. He didn't give him any type of validation. And I'm wondering, how many times have you given the devil acknowledgement where he doesn't even have any to begin with? Are we feeding into this narrative that the devil is just so powerful? Are you feeding into that narrative? I started questioning it one day when I said, all this time I grew up hearing about the devil, and the devil does this, and the devil made me do it, and the devil is this, and the devil's busy today, and all of these things. And I'm like, does he really have that much power? Does he? Because the message that we're sending when we follow that narrative is that the devil is so super powerful. And don't hear what I'm not saying. He does have power, because the power that he got from God, he still has that. But we have to remember that he is still inferior to God. He's still inferior to Jesus. Jesus is all powerful. All power has been given to him in heaven and on earth. And so we want to make sure that we're giving him the honor that is due his name, even in our trials, even in our situations. We don't want to feed into this narrative that the devil is just so powerful that he can just do whatever he wants, because he can't. Now, as you look at Job 13:15, you're seeing that he's saying, though he slays me, yet will I trust him. That's powerful. Let me tell you why it's powerful. Job is acknowledging that, number one, nothing that happens to him is just off the whim of the enemy. Nothing that happens to him can happen outside of God's allowing it to happen for his divine purposes. The weapons are formed, but they won't prosper. So the things that happen to you, they had to go through an approval process. The devil had to ask Jesus to sift Peter as wheat. All of these situations that we're seeing throughout the scripture is giving the same narrative. You have to ask permission. Yes, you have power, but you have to ask permission. The only time the devil doesn't have to ask permission is when you remove your own boundaries. When you remove the boundaries that God places on you, that's when he doesn't have to ask permission, because guess what? Now you're free game. You stepped outside of the coverage and now you're free game. So listen carefully to what Job said. He said, though he slays me, yet will I trust him. He skipped right over the devil. He didn't even acknowledge it. He didn't even say anything about it. Nope, you don't exist. I am now saying, God, I recognize that you allowed this, but I will still trust in you. Remember when David had to choose his 3 punishments? He had to choose between 3 devastating things, and 2 of which had to do with humans. And he said, God, let me fall into your hands because you're so merciful. Let me not fall into the hands of humans. We have to know whose hands we're in. If you are in Jehovah's hands, I want you to understand that we too can say, we choose to trust you. Acknowledge only God. Because at the end of the day, only God can cause things to happen or not happen in your life. We're not going to give the devil any more validation. We're not going to give him any more power than he has. And yes, he does have power, but it's an inferior power when you compare it to Jesus. As a matter of fact, there's no comparison. So I just wanted to share that with you. I was just looking at it and I'm like, Job didn't even acknowledge this fellow. He didn't even acknowledge him. Yes, he was going through his issues. Yes, he was going through challenging times, but he looked to God and he said, you, God, you, though you slay me, I will still trust in you. You, God, slay me. Though you, God, slay me, I will still trust you. Whenever you come upon challenging times, remember, count it as joy. Why? Because you know whose hands you're in. That's why you count it as joy. We're not going to acknowledge the devil. We're not going to give him any validation. Oh, the devil's doing this, the devil's doing... No, God allowed that. God allowed that. And if God allowed it, there's a purpose in it. Do not miss the lesson in the season that you're going through. Because as we saw in scripture too, if you miss the lesson, you're going to go around and come back. You're going to keep circling that mountain. We want to make sure that we're giving credit where credit is due, and all credit, all praise, all power belongs to Jesus. Be blessed today. Stay beautiful.